Right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this week's IEEE TEMS webinar. And we are privileged to have Professor Weng Mark Lim with us here today. Professor Weng Mark Lim is an adjunct professor of Swinburne Business School at Swinburne University of Technology. Its home campus is in Melbourne, and he is a full professor and head of the School of Business at Swinburne University of Technology's International Branch Campus in Sarawak, Malaysia. Both campuses offer AACSB accredited business degrees. Professor Lim is also the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Quality and Innovation, an international peer-reviewed journal that is published since 2009 by InterScience publishers in Geneva, Switzerland. He has published close to 50 manuscripts in journals ranked A-star by the Australian Business Deans Council and the Excellence in Research for Australia journal ranking lists. He has also presented his work and led high-level policy discussions at the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and the World Economic Forum. Recently, Professor Lim was appointed as the Secretary of IEEE TEMS Malaysia chapter, certified as the new record holder for youngest professor in the Malaysian Book of Records, and named as an honoree of the 10 outstanding Malaysians by Junior Chamber International for his academic leadership and accomplishments. Thanks for coming and doing this session with us, Professor Mark, and we welcome you on behalf of TEMS board as well as the TEMS Membership Marketing Council. We really are privileged to have you here. Professor Mark is going to be speaking about business management in humanitarian crisis today. Over to you, Professor.
All right. Thank you, Manju. Hello, everyone. I hope you're keeping safe and well wherever you may be. Thank you for tuning in. So this is Professor Mark Lim from Swinburne University of Technology, which is an Australian university in Melbourne with an international branch campus in Sarawak, Malaysia, which is where I'm based. Now, before I start, I would like to give a big shout out to IEEE Technology and Engineering Management Society for inviting me to conduct this webinar. So today, I would like to share with you some practical tips for managing your business in light of the COVID-19 global humanitarian crisis. I understand that some of you may be engineers or information technologists, but I reckon that this webinar will still be useful to you as you are likely to be managerial roles now, if not in the future. And of course, COVID-19 is a humanitarian crisis that has impacted most, if not all, businesses around the world. So indirectly, we are all affected, and therefore, we are all stakeholders in this crisis. So I reckon that it is our duty to ensure that our businesses survive, or even better, prosper in this crisis and beyond. Next slide, please. Right, so this is the agenda of the webinar. First, I will introduce to you the concept of business management. Next, I will give you some brief insights about humanitarian crisis, including the COVID-19 pandemic that we are currently facing. And finally, I will share with you some practical tips for business management in humanitarian crisis, where you will learn about the different challenges that many businesses face so that you know that you are not alone, and of course, how you can go about overcoming these challenges. Next slide, please. So what is business management, right? In essence, business management is the administration of business activities. When you take on a managerial role, you're essentially given the major responsibility of managing administrative tasks for a business. The administrative tasks in a business may come in many forms. For example, a company may expect you to assist with its marketing program. A company may also want you to perform a budget analysis in order to find out the ways the company can cut costs. As you can see on the screen, a business may consist of numerous departments such as accounting and finance, human resources, marketing, R&D, information technology, product development, quality control, analytics, security, manufacturing, and logistics, among others. If you're in middle management, you'll be tasked to manage one of these departments. And if you are in top management, you will be tasked to manage the collegiality and the workflow across departments. But regardless of whether you are in middle or top management, as a business manager, you will need to perform a series of functions, right? For example, organizing, staffing, planning, leading, monitoring, controlling, and motivating. Therefore, business management in essence is an act of creating and maintaining a business environment where business or where members of the organization can work together and achieve business objectives efficiently and effectively. Next slide, please. Humanitarian crisis, right? There are many types of crises, such as those that you may face at home or at work. But humanitarian crisis, as the name of the crisis suggests, is one of the most, if not the most scariest crisis of all. This is because humanitarian crisis typically affects not only an individual and organization, but rather communities at large and sometimes across very large geographical regions. As you can see from the screen, humanitarian crises can emerge from a range of events, such as man-made conflicts, natural disasters, and disease outbreaks, such as the COVID-19 pandemic that we are currently experiencing. Next slide, please. The World Health Organization, or WHO, reported that there are close to 6 million confirmed cases and more than 360,000 deaths worldwide as a result of the COVID-19 disease outbreak. Now, these statistics suggest that more people are affected by humanitarian crisis today than at any point in recorded history over the last 100 years. And I think with the various news reports that are emerging daily, I'm sure many of us are aware that COVID-19 has killed more people than SARS and MERS combined. Next slide, please. For the business community, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused massive lockdowns worldwide. Essential suggests that prolonged business closure is not viable, right? And hence, businesses must now reopen, even though they do not know how the pandemic will play out. If not, they might very well be out of business. There are a range of potential scenarios based on the evolution of the virus itself and the nature of social response. As you can see on the screen, there are 4 potential scenarios. The first scenario is rapid remission, whereby the disease is contained and life returns to normal swiftly. Second scenario is flattened curve, right? Whereby the rate of infection is slowed but does not go into remission, meaning the disease is still there but the infection is just slowed, right? Like what we are experiencing now in Malaysia. The third scenario is cyclical outbreaks, whereby infections are controlled in most locations but may occasionally reoccur in some locations. So cyclical outbreaks is like, for example, China, where at first the disease came out in Wuhan and then after that it was okay and then now suddenly it's back again. So cyclical outbreaks are something like that. Finally, the fourth scenario is prolonged chaos, whereby effects to control the virus appears to be useless. Right? So this is the case of in the US, like what we are seeing today. Now, given the range of potential scenarios, companies will need to be prepared to change course on a dime in order to adapt into any one of these scenarios when they try to navigate through the uncertainties. So this means that any steps that are taken to reopen should therefore be easily reversible and scalable. Now, the reason why actions that businesses take should be reversible is so that businesses can revert back to status quo if needed, such as when the situation of cyclical outbreaks were to occur. And the reason why actions should be scalable at the same time is so that businesses can move forward with agility once the rapid remission emerges, typically when a vaccine is found. Moreover, companies will also have to provide a safe and secure working environment whereby communication is transparent in order to build trust when they try to mitigate the immediate challenges. But more importantly, companies should not reopen by reverting to old ways. Instead, the reopening should be seen as an opportunity to create a better future for employees and customers. Can we have the next slide? Now we have a clearer understanding of what business management encapsulates and the nature of COVID-19 humanitarian crisis that we are experiencing. Let us now take a closer look at the challenges that businesses face and the strategies that can be undertaken to overcome those challenges. As you will see in the coming slides, many of the challenges that many businesses are experiencing are not exactly new challenges, but rather what you will notice is that many of these challenges in the past have now become more prominent and relevant to most, if not all businesses today as a result of the rise of the new norm. To make it easy for you to understand, I'll be taking a two-step approach whereby I will first share with you a business challenge followed by a strategy that you may want to consider to address that challenge. It's important to note that not all businesses encounter all of these challenges, as some businesses may be more prepared than others for some challenges, and likewise, some businesses may be less prepared than others for other challenges. Now, if any of the challenges look new to you, then it is best you take note of some of these challenges just in case, as Prevention is better than cure. So sit back, relax, and keep a lookout for the challenges that you are facing. Or perhaps if you want to keep an eye for a strategy that could enhance your response to some of these challenges, please do take note. Next slide, please. Here we go. Business challenge number one, unable to operate at physical offices. So this challenge is quite prominent in recent times due to lockdown measures that governments around the world have implemented to curb the spread of the coronavirus. While some countries like China and India have experienced full lockdowns, other countries like Malaysia and Singapore have experienced partial lockdowns. Similarly, some sectors such as education, entertainment, and even construction have experienced shutdowns, which means that many people are unable to operate at physical offices or physical sites. Given that the coronavirus pandemic is far from over and the need to overcome this challenge very quickly, businesses today, whether they like it or not, must embrace the work from home culture, which I reckon is here to stay. Now, in order for the work from home culture to succeed, there are a number of issues that businesses must tackle. First, businesses must encourage their employees to find a designated workspace at home, right? And this can be as simple as indicating the options to employees on how they can find a designated workspace, right? For example, it could be great if employees could find a separate room that they can use as a home office. Alternatively, it would be good if employees could find a workspace that they would feel would make them most productive. For example, a comfy beanbag, if it works, or sitting on the floor at the coffee table, or even a well-lit corner of their favorite room. More importantly, businesses must encourage good work from home practices, right? For example, when it's time to eat, all employees should put their work aside and make sure that they focus on eating their meals device free. And when it's time to work, employees should put their food and personal tasks away. Rather than working over from home, they should also identify the area that is going to be their dedicated workspace and to keep it clear, when they are working. Next, I believe that businesses must provide the right tools and training opportunities in order for the employees to work from home effectively. There are many innovations in technology that will make remote working life much easier. So it's important that businesses explore and implement new tools that would make working from home as seamless as possible. For example, using OneDrive and Microsoft Teams if the business has an ongoing Microsoft subscription, and if they don't, then they can combine different brands of tools such as Zoom and Dropbox. And along with this, businesses must ensure that employees are trained and capable to fully utilize all these new tools. So training, in that sense, is really, really important. Moving on, businesses must also commit to scheduled communication, such as face-to-face virtual meetings and text messages, which are important to keep track of the business progress of the business activities. At the very least, each team should communicate daily and each department should schedule weekly virtual meetings to align and discuss on the challenges faced in order to ensure progression in business activities. Finally, it is important for businesses to set expectations, including, to some extent, rigid working hours to ensure that employees are aware of their responsibilities and are able to deliver and focus throughout the duration of their time working from home. This will also assist employees to be more committed in completing their tasks within working hours. Be very clear with them, what the KPIs are when working from home. This is important to ensure productivity, quality of work, and response time are appropriately maintained. This will also help to create the boundaries between work and family, which has become very blurred in recent times. Also, do encourage employees to take time to socialize and stay active, as they need their personal time to recharge in order for them to be productive at work, even when working from home. Can we have the next slide? Right. Business challenge number 2, resistance to return to the physical office. Now, this challenge arises when country lockdowns are lifted and sectors are reopened, but employees become resistant to return to the physical office as they might have gotten, perhaps a little bit too comfortable with working from home and try to find ways to avoid returning to physical offices. For some, it's playing up occupational health and safety issues. Now, to resolve these challenges, or this challenge here, businesses must reimagine the future of work. And I will encourage businesses to consider reimagining the 6 areas that you see on screen. In terms of personal health and safety, businesses must implement stringent policies and procedures, for example, screening measures, quarantine policies, and even employee risk profiling, where high-risk employees, such as those with a spouse working in quarantine centers or hospitals, can be exempted from returning to work for the general safety of other employees. In terms of physical workspace, businesses must commit to creating a physical environment that proactively reduces the risk of spreading the coronavirus. And this can be done, through special reconfiguration, limiting of interactions, and cleaning protocols. In terms of staffing and attendance, I reckon that businesses should try to adopt a distributed approach to work, whereby job routines are adapted to a new mix of on-site and remote working. So this means that businesses must identify jobs that can be sustainably managed from home full-time and to get employees to come in as and when necessary. As at the end of the day, it is the results that matter. And if the new mix of on-site and remote working can lead to the same or even better results, then surely this is something that businesses must embrace in order to keep their best talents. Next, in terms of HR policies, businesses must ensure that compensation and benefits that they provide are in line with the risks that their employees are facing. For example, if you look at the healthcare sector, many doctors and nurses receive high compensation for being the frontliners in the coronavirus pandemic. This compensation for the risk involved may come in the form of dedicated bonus or benefits or even salary adaptation. In terms of travel policies and external interaction, I reckon that it is a no-brainer for businesses to restrict travel and to limit interactions with third-party stakeholders to only that which is necessary. Given that the range of video conferencing technologies such as Microsoft Teams and Zoom, which I reckon that many of us are very familiar with now, many business meetings and trips can now be eliminated by having those discussions online. This is important to protect the health of employees as well as the health of businesses itself, as the savings from travel and entertaining stakeholders when they come to your office will surely help with the cash flow in difficult times. Next slide, please. So I've covered two challenges. The first was in terms of being unable to operate at physical offices, and the second was in terms of returning to physical offices. These two challenges may look to be at odds, but if you recall the range of potential scenarios that could happen based on the evolution of the virus itself and the nature of social response, then I reckon it's very sensible for businesses to be well prepared for both of the two challenges that I've discussed as they come back and forth, when there is a peak in the coronavirus or when there are any types of humanitarian crises that could emerge in the future. To me, the first two challenges are simply basic and fundamental because they relate to people, which of course are the assets to any business organization. As without people, businesses will cease to exist. So I thought that it really made sense, to address human resource related challenges first before moving on to what I reckon are some of the more challenging challenges that many businesses are facing as a result of the COVID-19 global humanitarian crisis. And this brings us to business challenge number three, right, as you see on screen, which relates to the lack of cash flow. In essence, cash flow is to a business what blood is to a human body. When there is no blood circulation for a few minutes, right, we will die. Similarly, without cash flow in the working capital, many businesses might have to close because they cannot pay their day-to-day expenses, right, such as salaries to employees, which actually have remained constant even during the lockdown. Nevertheless, many businesses are able to sell even during the lockdown, especially in the business-to-business marketplace, where credit of 30 to 60 days are often given by sellers to buyers. However, the problem is that many of these businesses that offer credit have not been able to collect payment in time, right? As other businesses are also experiencing the lack of cash flow. To some extent, this is like the chicken and egg issue, right? Do you sell first and collect payment later, or do you only sell, when you can collect payment immediately? If you sell first and collect payment later, then you risk the potential of bad debts. But if you sell only when you can collect payment immediately, then you risk the potential of not even making a sale. So I reckon that the option of selling first, collecting payment later could work if you know how to engage in good debt collection strategies. So to address the challenge or the issue of cash flow, particularly in an instance where you are able to sell but not able to collect the monies owed, then I reckon you will need to improve your debt collection, since this is your money anyway, and you need to make sure that you receive what is due to you on time, especially during difficult periods. There are two ways to go about debt collection, right? Empathic intelligence and reverse psychology. Now, the easiest I reckon is reverse psychology, where you will use the assertion of a belief or a behavior that is opposite to the one that you desired, with the expectation that this approach will encourage your clients to do what is actually desired, which is to pay you the monies due, right? And I'll share with you a personal experience on how I managed to collect a six-figure debt for a business that I own, which is involved in wholesaling, wholesale sourcing and outsourcing. So the story goes something like this, right? So I had this client who is involved in private labels, who bought a bunch of unbranded apparels for my company and did not want to pay up despite multiple attempts, by my staff to chase for payments. So one day I decided to show up at his office, right? And there's a receptionist. So I told the receptionist that I wanted to meet him and to tell him that the reason that I wanted to meet him was that I heard some rumors that he was going out of business, And within 2 minutes, I saw him walking towards me and inviting me to go out for a drink with him. So over drinks, I use this reverse psychology tactic, where I express my confidence in him. He's my friend, and I'm confident that he'll be paying me the monies due for the products which his company has already taken. But I also told him that I was concerned about the rumors of him going bankrupt. And guess what? We're in a public space, near his office, drinking coffee, and of course, some people around may be eavesdropping. So naturally, his ego came into play, right? And he immediately, with a slightly louder voice, told me not to believe those rumors, and he called his finance department immediately, issued a check for the money's owed right away. And true enough, the finance lady from his office came to the place where we were drinking to hand over the check in about 15 minutes. So you see, reverse psychology could work in a very interesting way for debt collection, which I reckon will be useful to help with the cash flow in this difficult period of time. That, of course, was the easiest option, but perhaps a more mischievous one. The alternative is to pursue an empathic intelligence strategy, right? Where you will need to be mentally prepared when you reach out to clients to request for payments, as late paying clients always have all kinds of excuses for you. Hence, you need to be committed to getting paid. So what you can do is to use the friendly but professional and firm approach, right? It's important for you to face this collection process with this mindset, right? The mindset of being friendly but still at the same time being professional and firm. Because if not, your clients are going to walk all over you, right? If you're not a good negotiator, then you need to delegate the job to someone in your company who can do a better job at negotiating and collecting debts, right? Following up is a very important, right? It's very, very important because, a dose of guilt combined with your own persistence, I reckon usually works. Some clients may just pay you simply because they want you off their back, right? And another reason could be, the follow-up actually makes them very uncomfortable and embarrassed by their own behavior, right, in owing you money. So I guess that in that sense, following up allows you to increase your chances of collecting your debts. Now, in the event where you have been tirelessly trying to collect this debt for quite a while and you feel, pretty sure that you're not going to see this money anymore, then what I will encourage you to do is to offer a settlement for less than what you actually owed, right? Before you actually, or before you come to a situation where you need to write off, as bad debts. But in any instance, you will need to be very proactive in collecting your debts in order to improve your cash flow. Since what you may actually be facing is that you may be doing all right with sales, and the problem could be a very tight cash flow, right? Which nonetheless could be as fatal as not having any sales at all. So you really need to be good in debt collection, and empathic intelligence and reverse psychology are two ways you can go about proactively collecting the monies that is rightfully yours. Next slide, please. Moving on, business challenge number 4, lack of cash. Now, lack of cash is different as compared to the lack of cash flow. So this is because the lack of cash flow is a problem where you have cash, but the cash is not with you. For example, it could be that the cash is with the client who has taken your product but have not paid yet, right? So that is lack of cash flow. In contrast, the lack of cash is a problematic situation which could occur when you have exhausted your working capital, for example, in paying operational costs such as employee salaries during the lockdown or shutdown. Or it could be a situation when you might not have any substantial debts to collect, right? Or when you might not have any cash to produce the quantity of products that you would like to produce. For example, you want to ramp up your business of producing, let's say, face masks and hand sanitizers because these products are in demand due to increasing health concerns as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. But you can't do that because you do not have enough cash to pump into your business and ramp production up. So, to address the challenge pertaining to the lack of cash, I reckon that businesses must consider leveraging on other people's money. Yep, you heard that right. So I'll repeat. If businesses do not have enough cash, then they must consider leveraging on other people's money to help them to make money or perhaps even more money, of course, in an ethical way. meaning that the source of money must be legal and that businesses must be committed to returning that money if it needs to be returned. So there are a number of ways to raise funds during humanitarian crisis, or in other words, how you can get access to other people's money. So that's what I meant in terms of leveraging other people's money, right? In terms of raising funds. So the first and easiest way is to sign up for government aids and government grants, which many governments around the world are giving out very generously as a way to encourage firms to avoid layoffs and to stimulate the economy, which has suffered as a result of lockdown measures, taken to control the spread of the coronavirus. If you're a business, I would urge you to take advantage of this and do not let the preconceived thoughts to hold you back from going for government aids and government grants. It is not true that government aids and grants are difficult to get, as what you really need to do is just to read the conditions very carefully and to be very clear in explaining how you satisfy those conditions, which are actually meant to help businesses that are either genuinely suffering or that could credibly demonstrate a thorough action plan on how the money will be used and how this will help to keep jobs and to create wealth in the economy in these difficult times. Nevertheless, I admit that government aids and grants perhaps might take a while. I'm still on the previous slide. I'm still on the previous slide. Yep, this slide. Okay. So where were we? We are at, I think we are in terms of government aids and grants, right? So I've shared with you about government aids and grants. If you can go for it, go for it. But nevertheless, I also acknowledge that government aids and grants, sometimes it might take a while. So if you're in a hurry to raise money to survive, then your options are quite limited, right? So if time is essence, then I reckon that your reputation and credibility is of utmost importance now, as you can only raise money from the people who have done business with you, who have a good relationship with, meaning that if you want to raise money in the shortest possible amount of time, then the cash will likely come from people who trust you, such as your family and friends, or strategic business partners, or your suppliers and customers. So if let's say you have exhausted all these options from people whom you trust, then your next options are people who do not know you but are actively going around investing their money. For example, banks and financial institutions, crowdfunding platforms, and venture capitalists. In all instances, right? In all instances, I reckon that we can agree that cash is king when it comes to business survival and success. But when it comes to spending, cash must be spent prudently and wisely, like how we spend when we do not have enough money. So that is to say, once businesses have managed to secure an injection of cash funding, they must use that cash in a way that prolongs business operations and that generates a good return on investment. This is because only government aid and government grants are the only source of funding that businesses generally do not have to repay, whereas all other sources of funding need to be repaid, be it from people whom you know and trust you, or from people who you do not know but are willing to invest in your business activities. All right, so those sources all needs to be repaid. Next slide, please. Finally, business challenge number 5: sales strategies are not working. I reckon that the most difficult part of running a business, right, is to generate sales. And during the lockdown, I reckon that many businesses are facing many sales issues. And here are some of those issues which I found through my research to be quite prominent during the COVID-19 global humanitarian crisis. The important thing for businesses to do when faced with sales challenges is to search and embrace alternative sales strategies. The key word here is alternative, meaning that when you face a stumbling block, you must immediately shift your mind to ask these questions. What is the alternative? How could I do this differently? And when you do find, the alternative, then do give the alternative a go, when you have thought about it. The good thing about sales strategy is that you can always pivot, when your market validation fails. And of course, you can always scale when your market responds to you positively, thereby giving you market validation that the sales strategy that you're employing is working. So let's take a closer look at some of the possible sales strategy that might not be working as expected and what you can do as an alternative to generate sales. If you're unable to meet customers due to the lockdown, then I reckon you will need to create new marketing channels. For example, if you have always been doing in-person face-to-face sales calls, then you might need to use video conferencing to have that face-to-face sales calls online. Another example could be if you have only, physical point of sales to meet your customers, then you might want to create new points of sales online, such as using, paid advertisements on social media, invitations to webinars, and follow-up email marketing, which I reckon at some point in time, people will actually click and respond to it. You know, people these days, they like free things. And if you're able to provide them with something free, such as a free webinar, and on a continuing basis, then chances are they will come looking for you. And when they do, then there's an opportunity for you to convince them to purchase your products or to engage in your services. Next, if you are facing plummeting customer demand from your current pool of customers, then perhaps it is time for you to target new industries because some industries are taking a plunge, whereas other industries might be better off. For example, healthcare providers, like your hospitals, your clinics, and so on, you know, they are not doing very well, right? But healthcare equipment manufacturers, like your face masks, your sanitizers, your gloves, and pharmaceutical companies, right, those producing medicines, are actually thriving in the coronavirus pandemic. So let's say, you are selling IT services and your current clients are mainly healthcare providers, hospitals, clinics, then what you might want to consider is to target healthcare equipment manufacturers and pharmaceutical companies, because these companies are actually doing well, right? So if your current pool of customers is not doing well, then you need to find other industries where, perhaps the industry is doing well and target them to sell your products and services, right? Or alternatively, you might also want to expand your market by selling your products and services online, right? Because online to me is equivalent to the international market, meaning that the world is your oyster for getting customers. You could be based in China or India, right? Or Bangladesh. But your customers can come from Australia, can come from Malaysia, can come from Singapore, can come from Thailand, can come from Philippines, can come from Vietnam. As what we are currently seeing through the boost of online shopping during the COVID-19 pandemic is testament to this fact. Next, if you have problems to find new customers, and let's say, you are in the business to business industry, then I would encourage you to consider LinkedIn prospecting, right? Because LinkedIn is like Facebook, but for professionals, meaning that you can look up for business owners and procurement managers online that you could potentially target to sell your products or services. If you have small sales teams, as in the case for many engineering and IT companies, then perhaps what you need to do is to get everyone in the company to sell and to take a gamified approach to selling, meaning that the more your employee is able to sell, then the more bonus or commission they will get. If you have limited channels for selling, then perhaps you might want to collaborate with others to sell your products. And the interesting thing about collaboration is that collaboration allows you and whoever you're collaborating with to increase the size of the product range targeting to the same customer at no cost at all. Meaning that customers will get a wider range of products to choose from businesses who collaborate with one another. And a very prominent example for this is in the shipping industry, where the freight forwarders collaborate with the custom forwarding agents and the trucking operators to provide a total logistic experience to the customers. Next, if you are operating in the service industry and you are facing a big challenge to sell your services because your customers fear physical touch and social distancing, then I have two alternatives for you to consider. Right? First, you may want to deliver your services online. Right? For example, recently I've seen comedians. Right? If you're in Malaysia, then you will know Harif Iskandar, you will know Jason Leong. Right? So I've seen them, recently using Zoom to replace in-person comedy shows. Right? And that to me is an innovative way of converting in-person services to online services. So that's one option. Another option that you may want to consider is to convert your services into products, right? For example, lately I've seen many beauty salons and spas, like for example, Marie France, if I'm not mistaken, who traditionally offer in-person beauty services. And now what they do is they sell the value of their services via products, right? Meaning that people can now stay at home and buy these products, have these products delivered to them, and they can stay beautiful at the comfort of their home, all right, without going to the beauty salons and spa. Similarly, I've been seeing, on Facebook, the Facebook ads, whereby, you have all these management consultants. Previously, they have all these consulting services and stuff like that. And now they come up with ebooks and then they sell it, right? So you also see in terms of in-person services translating into products. right? So when you look at the examples that I've just given you, those are the examples of how you can still generate a sale if your business was traditionally providing in-person services. Finally, the problem that most, if not all businesses face is competition, right? So this is something that I'm very, very passionate about, right? This problem. Because, there is simply too many competitors around the world, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, where your competitors are likely to become very aggressive in reaching out in order to ensure business survival for their own business. To me, it is important that you understand that the adoption and use of technology has accelerated rapidly, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Which means that customers now have more access to information than ever before. This means that traditional sales strategies, such as relationship building, needs diagnosis, have pretty much become irrelevant, as by the time the customers agree to meet you, they would have already known what they are looking for, and they are simply looking to purchase from a supplier who can offer them the products or services that they're looking for at the cheapest price. I'm sure you do not want to be in a situation where your clients are constantly bargaining with you on price. Because if they do, it simply means that your product or service is just a commodity. So, based on my research in the area of challenger marketing, I would encourage you to consider tweaking the way you sell to your customers by doing your research beforehand to find out what your customers might be thinking, and to also think what your customers might not know, and to use that knowledge to unteach your customers about a preconceived understanding in order for you to teach them something new that they might have not thought before, and in order for you to gain their buy-in and purchase the value that you are selling that other competitors are unable to provide. And what I mean by value here is not just your product, but also the commercial insights that you deliver along with your product to help your customers earn more money at the end of the day. So this means that in order for you to unteach your customers about something they already believe in, it is crucial that you set up research teams in your business and to research about the industry as a whole and the customers of your customers. Because if you can help your customers to gain more customers and to earn more money, then it is very likely that you will shine above your competitors. You know, many people when they sell to the customer. But the ones that really stand out are those that sell to the customer of the customer, right? If you'd like to know more about the challenger approach to marketing, then I would encourage you to read my papers on challenger marketing, which has been published in A-rank journals such as Industrial Marketing Management and the Journal of Business and Industrial Marketing. Next slide, please. So that's it. To recap, we have covered 5 different challenges that businesses face during humanitarian crises, such as the coronavirus pandemic, as well as 5 different strategies that businesses could take to navigate and recover from the effects and changes brought by the COVID-19 global humanitarian crisis. Now, in terms of human resources, we've uncovered 2 pertinent challenges in the form of being unable to operate at physical offices and the resistance to return to physical offices when lockdown and shutdowns are lifted. So to overcome these human resource challenges, businesses must embrace the work from home arrangement and to reimagine the future of work. In terms of accounting and finance, the challenges that were revealed revolve around the lack of cash flow, where businesses have cash, but it's just not with them, and the lack of cash, which is a situation where businesses do not have enough debts. Oh no, sorry, where businesses do not have enough debts. Yeah, correct. So businesses do not have enough debts to collect, right? Lack of cash flow. That's where a situation where businesses may not have enough debts to collect, and when businesses do not have enough cash to produce. And to overcome these challenges, all right, which is related to accounting and finance, businesses must improve on their debt collection. And if they increase their working capital, then they can consider, if they want to increase their working capital, then they can consider leveraging on other people's money to help them make more money, of course, in an ethical way. Finally, in terms of marketing, I shared with you through this webinar that the inability to meet customers, plummeting customer demands, uncertainty in searching for customers, small sales teams, limited channels of selling, inability to render services due to physical touch and social distancing, and of course too many competitors. These were among some of the common challenges in sales, which could be remedied by creating new marketing channels, targeting customers from new industries, engaging in LinkedIn prospecting, getting an entire company to sell using a gamified approach, collaborating with others, going online and converting services into products, and of course, the one I really like, which is to take a challenger approach to marketing. In all instances, businesses must always, keep an open and curious mind to proactively work on some, if not all, of the ideas that I've just shared in order to ensure business survival. And of course, if this is done with genuine enthusiasm and agility, then I'm confident that businesses will be able to realize the potential of becoming a very successful company despite operating in the midst of the global humanitarian crisis such as the coronavirus pandemic. Next slide, please. Right. Before I end, I would like to share two opportunities with you. So the first opportunity is mainly for academics. So I'm the editor-in-chief for the International Journal of Quality and Innovation, which is published by InterScience Publishers, a reputable publisher based in Geneva, Switzerland. So there are two special issues, one on COVID-19, which has a deadline of August 1st, 2020, and another special issue on business innovation via digitalization, which has a slightly later deadline of August 1st, 2020. October 1st, 2020, sorry. So the COVID-19 is on August 1st. The one on business innovation via digitalization is on October 1st, right? So that's the deadline. Now, the good thing about these special issues is that all papers submitted to the special issues will undergo a fast track review process, whereby submitting authors can expect a maximum of 2 rounds of review, with each round taking a maximum of 2 weeks. We will also be taking a developmental approach in the review process, which means that the guest editor's disposition is not to reject papers, but rather to help authors develop their papers to reach the publishable standard. You know, there's a lot of negativity, going around when it comes to academic publishing. And we at the International Journal of Quality and Innovation are doing our very best to avoid taking a judgmental approach and instead to take a developmental approach where we treat submissions in the editorial review process in a very developmental way. So if you have got any papers on COVID-19 or business innovation via digitalization in the pipeline, do consider submitting to the special issues shown on your screen. The second opportunity is mainly for practitioners. So besides serving as an adjunct professor at Swinburne's home campus in Melbourne, Australia, I also serve as the head of the Swinburne's Business School in its international branch campus in Sarawak, Malaysia. And we have a Master of Business Administration international program that is running. So the master program, or the MBAI here, is accredited by AACSB in the US. And for your information, AACSB accreditation represents the gold standard for business schools, as only 5% of business schools around the world hold this accreditation. And to me, it is my firm belief that the next best thing to a US degree is an international degree that's accredited by the US. You can also enroll into our MBA full-time and study part-time through the blended learning opportunities and over the weekends. So if you're interested in any of the two opportunities which I've just shared, do contact me at marklim@swin.edu.au. Next slide. Next slide, please. Right, so that's it from me. I hope you have found this webinar useful, and I'll be more than happy to take some questions, and of course to do my best to clarify on any of the points that I've made, or to give you some ideas, perhaps, on how you can go about overcoming some challenges which perhaps I have not managed to cover in this 1 hour webinar. Right, so back to you, Manju.
Thank you so much, Professor Mark. That was a great session, and indeed, I have to mention that when I first contacted Professor Mark, he was not available on this date, and he was trying to see if this can be rescheduled. But he made time for us, made sure that he's available for doing this session, which is incredibly helpful for all businesses across the world in this pandemic situation. If you have any question, do put them in the Q&A panel, which is there on WebEx. If not, you could also put that in chat. If you would like to ask the question yourself, please raise your hand. There is an option to do that, and I can go ahead and unmute you. We do have probably like 15 minutes of time for Q&A today, which is really good. Professor, there is one question which has already come in, or rather something somebody has asked. Rakshit here would like to have the links that you presented in your presentation. If you could kindly share links to your papers that you mentioned, and also if you have any suggestions around some good books which can help with any of the topics that you mentioned today, I think that would be helpful.
So I've already shared in the chat box the titles of the papers that I've published. One is on challenger marketing. It's published in industrial marketing management. So if you were to type on Google challenger marketing, you will see that paper. And the other one is in terms of how can challenger marketers targeted the right customer organization, which is published in Journal of Business and Industrial Marketing. Again, if you Google it, you will able to find the paper. So I've already put the link, the titles of those papers on the chat box. And I believe that these two papers are actually free on the journal's website now. Yeah,
Sure. If you could also just send me those links, I will include it when I send out the recording of the session, along with a quick survey link as well.
sure, sure.
Cool. I am now opening it up for everyone. If they have any questions, you can. I'll just be on mute and wait for a few minutes. I see somebody raising a hand, so let me go ahead and unmute them. I am so sorry, the panel is pretty small, so I cannot see the full name, but you're now unmute and you can go ahead and ask the question. That
Hi,
is Mohammed
can you hear
Asadul
me?
Islam. Yes, we
Yeah,
hear
that's
you. Go
right.
ahead, please.
Hi, Prof. Thank you. Thank you so much for such a insightful session, actually. And I really, um impressed by the five challenges you have summarized, and you have given all those, solutions to the business management situations. And I just wanted to thank you. And Prof, what do you think here? The IoT or maybe Industry 4.0. I think what about their application could be for the human resource managers in the organizations. I mean, I just want your insights from there. And I think some of the people has asked for the link of the your papers. Some people don't understand how to get them, so it is better if you share the links. I mean the URL of your papers. I tried to get it, but I know the place where I am sitting down is internet is too slow. I don't know either you are hearing or not, but I'm just speaking on. So thank you so much, Prof.
Okay. Good to see you here, Asadu. So I've actually put the links to the papers on the chat box. So the links are there. Right. So now back to your question in terms of how IoT or Internet of Things can be used, in this pandemic situation, and how would that actually help in terms of human resource challenges. So IoT allows a lot of different technologies to be connected. Um, so a typical way of an old-fashioned way of looking at IoT is like your fax machine. When you want to fax something, then you just fax over, and then it will just, being the receiver will actually receive it from there, right? So same case with IoT as well. Looking at that point of view. But of course, IoT is much more advanced now, and if we look at human resource challenges, one way I could see IoT work is that when it comes to people, of course, data privacy and security is a is an issue. So of course, if with the permission of the employees, and if they are happy to be tracked and to have the IoT in their work environment at home, then perhaps one way is to have the Fitbit that they wear on their hands, that people wear on their hands these days to monitor their health. So I think that is a good idea for human resource managers to see whether employees are doing well in terms of their health while working from home. Because when you work from home, there is a lot of studies that have just emerged, quick surveys from the industry. One of the surveys is in Germany, and in Germany they have found that working from home gives people a lot of job satisfaction, right? But however, a lot of people become very stressed, and they have a lot of disorders because of working from home. So you may be thinking that, wait a minute, didn't I say that people are more satisfied with their jobs working from home? But how can this then lead to sleep disorders and stress and stuff like that, right? So one way of looking at that is that when they work from home, then there is no boundaries in terms of working hours. And that's why in my presentation, I said that, perhaps in terms of HR policies, there needs to be a little bit of a rigid working hours. So people know that, all right, everybody is supposed to work, like, for example, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and that's it, right? Because now what we're currently seeing is that people can work from home, they can enjoy the comfort of their home, they have their families with them. It brings them a little bit of joy and job satisfaction in that sense. But because their their devices are on 24/7 and people can contact them at any time of the day, so that sometimes creates some disorders. Imagine when you are about to sleep at 10 p.m. and then suddenly a WhatsApp message comes in or an email comes in that's directed to you, and that WhatsApp message or that email is relating to a problem. Of course you will feel anxious, you will get a little bit of anxiety, and then you suddenly cannot sleep. So that could be perhaps one of the issues that could happen, right, in terms of the health and well-being of employees while working from home. And IoT, in that sense, with the permission of the employees, if they are able to wear, that Fitbit devices and stuff like that, and if HR can monitor to see how well the condition of their health to some extent through that device via IoT, then of course, I think it's a good way forward for human resource practices to manage the well-being in terms of health for the employees who are working from home. So yeah, I hope that gives you an idea, perhaps one way of IoT being applied to HR, especially during these times of um, coronavirus pandemic. And of course, this is the first time I think worldwide everybody have to work from home. They have no choice but to work from home, of course, excluding the frontliners. So yeah, I hope that helps to give you a little bit of clarity on how the new technologies can be used in the instance of HR as you have raised. So thank you very much for the question, Asadu.
All right, I have
Uh,
one more question which is coming in from Gabriel V. The question goes like this. Hi, Mark. As a distributor, we are operating on a thin profit margin with high gearing from the bank. The best case scenario is vertical integration, which is to become a producer. However, due to the pandemic, we are facing the issue of debt collection, which is one of the points that you have mentioned, due to our clients' poor business performance. As what you mentioned, now that customers have greater access to information, they could easily turn to the producer for stock, or producers could be selling directly to the end customers. What is your advice for intermediaries such as the suppliers and distributors? In addition, the directives from the government also require business to incur more cost to comply to the SOP to business reopening. Hence, in addition to the question above, what is your advice for intermediaries such as suppliers and distributors to take the next steps?
all right. So thank you very much
That
for the
was
question. Yeah. So thank you very much for the question. So that's to me that's a issue of supply chain. That is one, and then in terms of cash flow, that's another element that is having a problem there. It could also be the lack of cash as well, in terms of having the additional expenses because of government regulations, right? So now, if I were to understand the issue correctly, is that your supplier for agriculture products, and now you also want to produce perhaps the end product so that you're able to sell to the end users at the end of the day. However, you also have competitors who are also selling the end products as well. And when you look at your supply chain, where you actually supply your products to perhaps the producers, um, they are not able to pay you on time because they themselves are not doing very well as well, right? So of course, one way to look at that is to have a chat with your supply chain partners and to get progressive payments from them, right? So progressive payments gives you a little bit of cash flow. So meaning that the repayment is not in full, but is giving you in chunks. So giving you in chunks also helps you to create cash flow. So you will have some cash better than you don't have any cash at all. So that's number one. If you can break it down in chunks, then you're able to increase your cash flow in that sense. The next one is that always look for government aids and government grants. If you're in Malaysia, then there are a lot of different aid that is being given out. Like for example, UPA. right? Where if you retain your employees, and if your business performance is not doing very well, and you can demonstrate that, yep, it's not doing very well, your sales has reduced, let's say, by 30 to 40%, and you are still keeping all your employees. So what you can do is to take UPA, so that will give you a big chunk of, not a big chunk, but a significant chunk of money to to offset the cost of your wages. That is one. Another way is, perhaps your employees also understand that, that businesses is not doing well, and some businesses, they actually have pay cuts. But I'm not in favor of pay cuts. What I would recommend is to talk with the employees and to ask them whether they are comfortable with accepting pay deferment, meaning that you defer the pay, a percentage of the pay. Like, for example, can we defer 30% of your pay this month, and then I will pay you, let's say, in 3 to 6 months' time, right? So when you do that, you increase your cash and your cash flow at the same time, right? And I think many employees will be happy to say that, all right, yeah, I know times are bad, and yeah, I'll be happy to take this pay deferment, right? Because pay deferment means to the employees is that they will only get, it's not a pay cut. So to employees is that pay deferment is not a pay cut. It's just that they will get their money later on. And for you is that you have the additional cash now, right? Because your employees are actually willingly allowing you to defer that pay for 3 to 6 months. So they give you a cash upfront. And when you have that cash, then you can consider expanding your business in terms of the vertical integration, in terms of becoming the producers of the end products. So that's another way to raise cash quickly, combining different source of funding. For example, in the case of government aids and grants, as well as even internally your own customers, which is internal customers, or in this sense is employees, right? So they can help you to raise that kind of cash as well, right? And when you do that, of course, you must have a sales strategy to make sure that you can sell. And when you can sell, then when you make money, that's where you pay up back from the pay for the pay that you have actually deferred. So that's, to me, that's one way to overcome that kind of a business situation, right? Another way is that is to collaborate with others. Like, for example, if let's say you want to go for vertical integration now and you want to manufacture your own products, the question here is this: do you have the technical expertise to manufacture those products on your own, or would it be more cost efficient for the producers to do it? If it's more cost efficient for the producers to do it, then perhaps what you might want to do is perhaps to buy a stake, uh, in terms of shareholding of those producing companies, and to use their facilities instead to 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 create the end products if it's going to be more efficient, right? Looking at that point of view, then you can also, once you purchase a stake in a company, especially the big stake, and if you're the board of directors, then you can also, provide some insights on how they should go about generating cash flow and stuff like that, so that they can also repay you back as well. And if like the suggestion that I've mentioned earlier in terms of going for government aids, that are there, government grants that are there, as well as the pay deferment strategy, then on both ends, your side as a supplier, you can raise funds. Your strategic partners who is producing can also raise funds. Then you have that kind of cash flow that is there, and an increase in cash at the current moment for you to operate and to make that sale, all right, to produce in the market. So when you look at that, that's one way to actually rejuvenate your supply chain. The final bit would be, will people buy it? Right? The question is, will people buy it? I mean, if you are in the agriculture industry, if you are in food, then I reckon that there is demand for food, of course, because the demand for food stays constant. So of course, I think you will get your demand there. But if you are in an industry where there is no demand, for example, there is no demand locally, right? Then what you may want to do is to look at um, countries overseas where they might have shortage of the products that you are producing, and to sell to those countries instead, because the shipping companies are running, the shipping business is running, the air freight business is running. So those are your opportunities to create new sales channels as well. Of course, let's say, if nobody wants your product, right? Let's say nobody wants your product. Like, for example, in terms of alcoholic beverages, right? If you look at Carlsberg and the Asahi and so on. So what they are doing is that they actually have a reduced demand when it comes to alcoholic beverages, because now people don't go for happy hour sessions and stuff like that. So what those factories of these alcoholic beverages do is they start producing hand sanitizers, because they are in the alcohol business, so they know how to actually deal with alcohol, and they have some facilities that could actually help them to do with it. So they actually end up, producing hand sanitizers instead. Here in the place where I'm in, which is in Sarawak, there are a few tuak companies, which is a local alcoholic beverage, that stop producing tuak and they start producing hand sanitizer instead, and then distributing it to the frontliners and to the general public. And some of them even making it available for sale due to the demand for these products. So if you look at the kinds of options that I've just given you, I've given you options in terms of how do you actually create cash flow, how do you raise cash, how do you manage the supply chains, how do you try to influence the strategic partner, through shareholding and stuff like that. How do you leverage efficiencies in the supply chain, and how do you sell if, let's say, if your product is not demanded by local market, you can go overseas where there's a shortage of it. Or if, let's say, the whole world doesn't want your products, then perhaps you might quickly look at what are the alternative products that can be produced in your manufacturing plant, for example, and so that you can actually produce on what is in demand, and so that you can keep your business afloat to survive in these difficult times. So yeah, I hope that gives you a broad range of ideas on the things that can be done across the spectrum of issues that you have shared with me. So thank you very much for the question, and I hope that gives you a little bit of idea in terms of what you can do. So yeah.
Hi, that was a wide range of options. In fact, some of the things which even I had not thought about. On the topic of supply chain, I have another question from Aldridge. He would like to ask how to deal with the supply chain disruptions of products that have limited suppliers.
Yeah. So the issue with supply chains is that, I think this is Aldrich. I think you have rightly pointed out. The issue is supply chains. If there is no supplier, no matter how many people can produce out there, you still cannot produce because you don't have the raw materials. For example, like when it came, when the coronavirus pandemic started, and there is a huge demand for face masks, and then everybody bought all the face masks, and then suddenly you see that there is not enough um, raw materials to make the face mask, right? So that could become an issue. But as entrepreneurs, right? As entrepreneurs, whenever there is an opportunity to make money, for sure there will be a solution, right? So of course, if you can get raw materials, it's good. But if you cannot get the raw materials, then there's always options on artificial materials that could substitute the raw materials, and someone will definitely come up with that, right? If there is no raw materials, if it's indeed true that there is not enough supply to go about in the supply chain, then there is an opportunity for entrepreneurship to arise, right? Because if you look at every economic downturn, all right, of course now the COVID-19, there is an economic pause, but is the economic downturn or recession on the horizons? I reckon it is. How long it will last? I don't think it will last like the 1998 financial crisis. It may last as short as the 2008 global financial crisis, which only lasted about a year and a half or so, right? So I reckon this time around it would be like that as well, because that entrepreneurs these days are very, very agile. If there is a shortage in supply, they will think of ways to create that supply. If it's not possible through raw materials, they will find artificial ways to create an artificial material so that it can be used as a substitute to produce the end product that is in demand. Right? If you look at buildings these days, if you look at China, previously there was always the case of labor shortage in terms of constructions, and construction buildings needing, 1, 2, 3 years to finish. But in China, they can build a hospital as quickly as a week. So if that is the case, meaning that they're actually leveraging on the latest advances in technology to make the best use in terms of supply. So if, let's say, labor shortage is there, especially in the coronavirus pandemic where people cannot go out and work, then it's okay. I will just produce the bricks like Lego, and I'll just plug and play, and within 1 week I can create my hospital. So that's an idea that entrepreneurs will have when it comes to making money. So I reckon that if there's any issue in supply chain, when there is not enough supply, as long as there's demand, if there is no supply, entrepreneurs will definitely find a way to create a supply. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Aldrich.
Thank you, Professor. And in the interest of time, we will take just one more question, which is from Rakshit. Rakshit, I will go ahead and unmute you now. You can ask the question. Rakshit, you're unmuted.
Great session. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much. It was a really insightful session, and it was a lot to learn from it. The question that I have is basically about this culture that has been changed due to the coronavirus pandemic. So we have seen the culture of work from home, especially in India. So we have seen this culture. So I just wanted to have your views. If we talk about this new normal of working from home, uh, in terms of both employees and in terms of manager, which is a better option? Is it to work out from office or work from home? Some of the points that I would like to include are like we have seen due to this work from home, there has been a productivity increase. uh, that is a plus point. But what I think is that productivity increases just because there are not more distractions in this period, and we all are sitting there at home. So that is what increases the productivity. But once everything opens up, then uh, it would be a bit difficult for people to uh, take to manage to work from home and manage well between their families and their work. So what is your take on it? How do you think this will be the new normal, or will it be coming back to offices and working?
Yeah. So thank you very much, Rakshit, for your question. So this is from a HR point of view, and it's from the work from home culture, right? So at the beginning of the pandemic, of course, you will see productivity increase because all businesses have to make the shift to work from home in order for them to survive, right? A lot of things have to be done online. A lot of new systems got to be set up. If a lot of things were done using paper-based in the past, now they have to make sure that those records are actually being done online and stuff like that. So definitely there is an increase in productivity because there needs to there needs to be a creation of an online system, and for that to work, there's a lot of training happening as well. So all that adds to the productivity that we have witnessing from the work from home at the initial stage of the coronavirus pandemic. Now, moving forward in the future, right? Will work from home stay, or will people go back to office, or will it be a combination of both? And how would the performance be, for employees as well as for businesses as a whole? When I look at it, it's actually very simple. For businesses as well as for employees, at the end of the day, both employees and businesses must produce results, right? Employees need to produce the results in order to justify um, their bonuses, right, or a promotion, whereas organizations need to justify results in order to give a good return on investment to their shareholder. Because if they don't, if the organization, the top managers, if they're not producing the results for the organization, then naturally the shareholders will have them replaced. Same case with employees as well. If they are not delivering the results at the end of the day, um, of course, either they will be replaced. If they cannot be replaced, then they will not get their bonus, or they will not get the promotion they're looking for. So the traditional motivators, intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, um, the traditional motivators in that sense still applies regardless of whether it's work from home or work from office, because at the end of the day, results matters. So if people work from home and they are taking that as an opportunity to do less work and to still gain a salary, when it comes to performance appraisals, which happens every year, that's where an evaluation of performance will happen. So as an organization, you will definitely have mechanisms to monitor the performance of work, right? um, being micromanaging isn't really the best way to manage work from home culture, unless employees need that, employees want that. Perhaps they need guidance, they want guidance, they genuinely look up to the team leaders and say, please give me guidance. I need guidance working from home because I'm very clueless. I have a lot of things going on and I need guidance. So I need to be micromanaged. So if that is the case, if employees want that, then of course those employees can be micromanaged. But in general, these days in this age and time, especially with millennials and the upcoming generation, Generation Z, they don't want to be micromanaged. What they want to do is they want to have freedom to exercise their creativity and their flexibility, work-life balance, in their life. And working from home definitely provides that. But more importantly is to always focus on results. If employees can deliver the results, they can deliver the results in terms of quantity, in terms of quality, and in the right time to deliver, they deliver it on time or if not earlier, then I reckon that it shouldn't be an issue. So at the end of the day, um, some employees may work better in the office, some employees may work better on home, some of them may need both. At the end of the day, those are just different work styles that the future of work would offer. But as organizations, from an organizational point of view, as well as from employee point of view, if they want to get more, all right, meaning whether they want to get more salary, they want to get a higher bonus, or they want to go for promotion, or they want to go, they want to get for promotion, or they want a bigger payout from the board of directors and stuff like that, then results matter. So when results matter, people will become productive, people will deliver the results that is being targeted, and if they can, they will try to hit more than the results that they have been set, the goals that we have been set, the KPIs that have been set. They will try to overachieve it in order to justify a bigger quantum of of bonuses and salary increments and director payouts at the end of the day. So yeah, I hope that answered your question, because when you look at the future of work, I would say that in the future of work, options to work will be available and it will be the norm. The new norm would mean that people can choose how they want to work, and the way of evaluation would be in terms of results. Performance appraisals will become more and more important. And if you have the results, you will get the additional benefits that you're looking for. If you don't produce the results, then you are at risk of perhaps not getting the bonuses, the promotion, or even losing your job, as in the case of of employees in the past. If they don't perform, they will also be faced with this kind of situation. So I don't think that will change in the future, but the importance of performance appraisals and on results will definitely become more important, especially when people actually work from home. So as long as people produce the results, I think employers are actually okay with it. So yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of clarity, as well as some insights on what to expect in terms of the future of work and how the future of work can be managed. Right? So performance appraisal is the way to manage the performance of employees, and the carrot there is in terms of the rewards that will come. So yeah, I hope that gives you gives you some insights and answer your question. So thank you very much for the question, Rashid.
Thank you for all the detailed answers, Professor. I think we have already crossed our 6 o'clock time limit, and in the interest of time, I said, if you have any further questions, please do send the questions to us. You can directly send it to Professor Mark, or you can mail them to me, and I will have them answered. Before we end, I also noticed that the president of TEMS, Andy Chen, is online along with us in the session. And if you have anything to say, feel free to do it right now. And thanks for attending. I have to say that, I see Andy every Thursday in all the webinars, regardless of what time we actually do it. So he's been very enthusiastic and encouraging about all the webinars that we've been doing. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Manji. Thanks very much for doing the series. And I'd like to thank, can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. So I'd like to thank Professor Mark Lim for a very intriguing presentations. And I really appreciate all of audience engagement in these. I think one of the things I want to make a comment on is that there's a lot of touch base on this future of work. Is people going to work from home? So it generates huge discussion around the topics and the rank of the CEOs or the managers. I think just about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, uh, Twitter comes out and say to their 5,000 employees saying, no one has to come back in anymore. After COP is finished, you can all stay home. So it really set a different tones for the future of the work environment. And Google follows suit pretty fast and say, oh, maybe 40% of them don't have to come back. It I think that we probably need some of more thinking for people like you doing the research is what is it going to be like if a company are totally going to operate uh, remotely? What do they need? Because in the Silicon Valley times, one of the biggest draw for employees is when they comes in, they get free coffee, they get free lunch, they get ping pong games, they got all kinds of stuff that they can do for attracting the young talent, right, from one to the others, because it's very competitive when it comes to high tech, where you got a couple talent who's very good at producing different results. They got very highly seek for by different company. But once it gets into the point where you don't have anything to offer other than just the salaries, it's become the playing field really become complicated. So what this company can do, like I know for one thing, Twitter was talking about maybe we'll supplement $1,000 for foods and entertainment for them staying home because they also save their office space, the real estate, and all that stuff. But I just want to get your perspective on what type of research can be spun off to help the company, especially the high tech company, the company that can allow uh, the employees to work from home. Uh, and we're talking about, after COVID's over, like you can come back if you want, but people is going to start thinking about, if I don't have to commute for 2 hours, I live in California. That's the 2 hours again, and why would I want to go to office for just to stuck on the road for 2 hours? So it's going to be very exciting, interesting mix after this is over.
Yep. So thank you very much, Andy, for sharing that very interesting insights. And I totally agree with it. The point that you have made in terms of companies with the biggest talents, attracting the biggest talents, especially those in Silicon Valley. Of course, they, those companies in Silicon Valley have operations all around the world as well. So like Google, they have their offices here in Malaysia. Like what you said, they have their entertainment, like their ping pong table, their snooker, their pool and snooker tables around their PS4s, the Wii. They even have food, free flow of food and stuff like that. All these things help to attract the best talents because those best talents, the quality of work is definitely there, and you need something more than money to attract the best talents, right? So working in offices provides you with an opportunity to create the additional value that the company can offer other than pay and so on, right? So that's the kind of lifestyle that a company can offer. Whereas if the employees actually work from home, then the question is, what is the additional value that these big tech companies, especially, could offer to the best talents in order to get the best talents to work from them? Because we don't want, many companies, I believe, don't want to be a situation where it becomes like soccer. Many companies don't want to be like soccer where what happens is that it's just wages and they keep on fighting with each other to get the best talents and to increase the salaries and stuff like that until it becomes to a point where it becomes ridiculous, right? And it doesn't make sense. I mean, football players, it's just a team of 11 players on the field, and of course you have substitutes and so on. But in a company, in a big organization, big tech organization, you may have few hundred to few thousand employees in there, and you cannot be trying to to deal and manage each and every one of them when it comes to bargaining of salaries and stuff like that. So of course, when you provide that kind of work-life culture in the past, that actually worked. So in the future, I think for research is to really look at what is it that employees would would value and would appreciate if employers are able to provide them other than salary, for example. Of course, traditional literature says that recognition is important. So if recognition comes into play, that would be good. But I think what we are looking for is not just recognition, it's not just in terms of a monetary compensation. Of course, allowances have been there all the while, and that can, of course, be provided. I'll put it under the box of monetary compensation. But I think what's very interesting would be how can the lifestyle at offices that have been created by these high-tech companies to attract the best talents, where, the best talents, of course, they go for pay, they go for recognition, but they also go for lifestyle as well. How can that kind of new um, alternative of lifestyle be replicated if employees do not come, you know, to work at offices and they choose to work from home instead? How would then that work? Um, Research needs to be done on that, and if there is a possible solution that I can offer, would be, like gym memberships, right? If you look at gym memberships now, right? Previously, gym memberships could only be used in a particular gym, and then it evolved to a situation where now your membership can be used across the same brands of gyms. And then it evolved to what we have seen today, that you can use your gym membership not only at this brand of gym, but also other brands of gyms. And you can also utilize, for example, co-working spaces with their partners and so on. So perhaps that kind of membership which creates options for lifestyles from people who work from home, to say that, all right, if you work with us, you can also enjoy these benefits with all our partners, and you can actually mingle around and meet people, different people. So perhaps that is one possibility or one additional privilege that can be given to employees. So what will happen is that the big companies will then be competing to create um, a big spectrum of privileges within their networks for that to happen, right? And they will try definitely to differentiate against one another, right? And who knows, big companies, these big top companies may actually diversify. They may actually buy stakes in other companies so that they can actually give exclusive access to their employees to this particular facility, like this particular gym, this particular club, can only be accessed by employees of this bigger conglomerate organization, for example. So I reckon that could be one way to create a lifestyle that will appeal to people who choose to work from home and they are the best talents. So besides compensation, besides recognition, besides allowances, there needs to be a substitute for the current lifestyle at working from offices, to a substitute that can be used, from a lifestyle perspective for employees who choose to work from home. And I think that kind of conglomerate privileges would actually be an interesting way forward. But of course, this will be subject to further research, and I hope research will actually help to uncover more alternatives besides the one that I've just mentioned. So yeah, I think thank you very much, Andy, for the question, and I hope that gives perhaps some sneak peek, into the future on some potential solutions to actually substitute the lifestyle benefit that is being given by these top companies from the office. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. So you touch on the lifestyles, right? So I think what I can see what's going to happen in the future that be very attractive to a lot of workers will be if somehow the whole world become you have some kind of and this is happening in China right now, that you get some privileges as you earn. So imagine that you know how airline give you if you are gold or a premium platinum, so they give you different privilege and access to it. If it become a global accessible one, and you have that kind of privileges, you can earn those privileges. and all give those privileges, you can literally just go to Starbucks and next thing you know, there is a different line for the gold, or just it's kind of turned into the whole world. That in China, I think if you earn some social credit, you can actually go to different places, right? Enter different places or do different things. So I see that's going to become a huge issues in the future. So if researchers like you can look into more about what would it be like if it's globalized, if it's actually around the world and people recognizing it, that what would that look like? So anyway, I think that the time is over, and I take too much time on everybody else, but I do want to appreciate that and really appreciate your insights, and Manji does such a good job to get everybody here. So on behalf of TAMS, I thank you very much. Hope you could promote more of TAMS in Malaysia, where you are. Let's get more people engaged and doing interesting things together.
Thank you very much, Andy.